Welcome to Understanding Variables with the Google Tag. Before we dive in, just a little bit about me. I am Manisha Mistry. I'm an instructor at measurementmarketing.io. I work with our dedicated measurement marketing clients. I am passionate about sharing my knowledge about and growing measurement skills and helping people grow their measurement skills. And I'm proficient in Looker Studio, BigQuery, Analytics, Canvas. Now, as an instructor, I love answering your questions, and specifically answering questions in Ask Instructor. So the Measurement Marketing Academy is our flagship product at the measurementmarketing.io. In the Measurement Marketing Academy, you have access to something called Ask an Instructor. Ask an Instructor is a fabulous resource. It is basically like having us sitting right there beside you. You can send us videos and we will send you videos right back. We will visit the sites you send us. We will take a look at, anything you send us in a video, let it be GTM setup, let it be a strategy question or your Kia, and we will dive in there with you. Now, let's first talk about one thing. As you are going through this training, take a minute and only focus on one thing. It's kind of like riding a bike. When you first ride a bike, you start with your parents holding you, and then slowly but surely they hold you less and less, and then you are riding a bike and you're riding on one wheel, right? Same thing with any training. Focus on grabbing one thing, and as you grab one thing every time you watch this, before you know it, you are flying. Okay, let's start. Understanding variables with the Google Tag. Let's dive in. Okay, before we start, we need to go through our foundation. We need to talk about our measurement marketing framework. Our framework helps us go from marketing in the blind to marketing where we can reliably grow revenue and profit. Now, in our framework, we have 3 key steps: plan, build, and launch. Plan is about questions, information, and actions. Knowing the questions you're going to ask, knowing the information you need to answer that questions, and then understanding the actions you're going to take based in that information. Build is all about results and traffic, understanding your results and traffic, and having it tell you a story. And launch is all about listening to that story, forecasting what's going to happen in that story, say the next day, the next week, the next month, and then optimizing. To learn more about this framework, go to measurementmarketing.io. Okay, now we are going to dive in. But before we do, we just need to set the stage. We are going to start out focused on strategy, and then we're going to dive into a live demo. So get ready, and I'm going to meet you there. Alrighty, so here we are. We are going to start out on strategy. Now, before we dive in, I really want to mention 2 really useful blogs that you may want to give a read. We will link these below. One of them is by Simo Ohaba. It's really helpful going through all the different Google tags and the variables we're going to discuss today. Here's the other one, super helpful. Again, they kind of walk through a great strategy. These blogs are super helpful, and they will be linked below. Okay, so let's talk about your current or what we call previous setup. So we all kind of, many of us started, especially if you were, with GA4 a while ago, you have the Google tag right now. And what is that? I'm going to actually dive into Tag Manager just to show that to you. So if you come into Tag Manager, you go to Tags, you go to New. Over here where it says Choose a Tag Type to Begin Setup, go over there. You're going to come down here and you're going to see Google Tag. So many of us have a Google Tag today. And basically in that Google Tag, we have what I like to call a basket of a bunch of different laundry clothes, okay? And, anytime we kind of put something in the configuration parameter or shared event parameters, we kind of cross our fingers as we go into preview and be like, okay, cross your fingers, I think about it as, in elementary school, it's like, yeah, okay, it's going to work. And then it's either, oh, nope, it didn't work, or yay, it worked. And it's kind of like that moment, right? And I kind of like to think of this as a basket of laundry, okay? And we all have baskets of laundry. Who doesn't, right? We all have baskets of laundry. But if you're anything like me, I have basket laundry, and I don't care if there's whites or colors or darks or anything in here. I'm really horrible at this, okay, for the record. And I take this basket of laundry and I throw it in my washing machine. And trust me, I've been there, where when I go back to the washing machine, I end up noticing, oh my Lanta, my whites have turned pink. Why? Because I threw in my white shirt and my red shirt, and all of a sudden my red shirt bled into my clothes, and my white shirt and my beige shirt are now pink, and I am not a happy camper. Sometimes this doesn't happen. I throw in this basket of laundry, dump it in my washing machine, and everything's fine. Everything's perfect. And I'm like, hooray, everything's great. I can keep doing this. Now, just like in laundry, we need to up our level. In measurement, now that we have a little bit of new tools and tricks, we're going to want to up our level. What does that mean? Let's talk about the strategy. Okay, so here we are. We have our basket of laundry. And we had our cases where sometimes our whites turned pink and sometimes everything was fine. Well, we could get a little creative with the way we deal with our laundry. Instead of grabbing our basket, dumping it in the laundry machine and being like, oh, yay, let's see what happens, we could take our time to divide our laundry. And what does that mean? It takes a few minutes to divide our laundry basket into whites, colored, and darks, basically. Basket of whites, basket of colored, and basket of dark. Now, why would we do this? By doing this, by dividing our laundry, when we go to our washing machine and we take our whites and we put them in the washing machine, there is a higher chance of us coming to the point where everything is fine. There's a less chance of us getting the, oh, my lands up, my whites have turned pink. So basically what we're doing is taking our basket and getting more advanced and upping our, I'm going to say, quote unquote, measurement skills to dividing our parameters now. And in this case, dividing our laundry. Now, how in the world does this apply to the new Google Tag settings variables? Let's dive into that. Okay, so here we are. So remember we had our complicated basket of laundry with all the clothes in it, and you know what? We kind of hope it works, kind of hope, we don't have any errors, hope it doesn't, air out and we don't notice. We've all been there, right? Okay, so now we're going to have our 3 baskets of laundry. The first basket you're going to have is a configuration settings variable, okay? This is a variable you use to set any configuration-specific settings with the Google Tag. Next, what you're going to have is a Google Tag event settings variable. And we're going to have it specifically call this a static. So it's event settings variable for static parameters. Basically, it's for establishing static value event parameters that will be used by all the tags that fire until the next time the Google Tag fires. Finally, we're going to have, I'm going to call this like your dark laundry basket. We're going to have the Google Tag event settings variable dynamic, right? For establishing dynamic value event parameters that will be set by all tags that have this variable attached to them, okay? So remember, whites, colored, and darks. So the same thing, we take our jambalaya, messy Google Tag, and we take a minute to divide it, upping our skill, upping our measurement. Okay, so let's talk about some examples for these 3, and then I'm going to give you 2 handy dandy links. So stay tuned for those, okay? So a great example of a configuration settings variable, I'll kind of show you how to set this, but I won't set it during the live demo, is something like server container URL. If you are on a server-side setup, you will need this in your web container to set the URL of your server container, okay? It is a great way to set the URL for your server container. And to learn more about what else you can set in a configuration settings variable, go to measure.zips/configurations variable. So I'm actually going to hit that link right now. I'm just going to copy it from here. Here we go. And we're just going to go Control-C, and we're going to pop over to a new window, and we're going to go paste. Okay, so here we go. It's a great article support page by Google. It walks through valid parameters for configuration settings variables and kind of goes through all that. So highly recommend you give this a read to learn more. And like we mentioned, you can go to measure.tips/configurations variable to get that, and we will link this below. Okay, now there is an event settings variable, and we're actually going to create 2. The first one we mentioned is static, and the second one we mentioned is dynamic. Now, why have 2? Well, there are times you want to set parameters, and you want every event that fires after that Google Tag until the next time the Google Tag fires to have the same value. That is a great use case for the event settings variable static variable. Okay, so basically a great example of this is page location. There's a lot of times where you may redact your PII from your page location or make some changes in GTM, and you want every event to use the same page location. For that reason, you would set it in your Google Tag event settings variable static. Okay. The other dynamic one is a bit more dynamic in so many words, okay? And this is for any parameters in your event settings variable that you want to have a value that's set at the time the event fires that has this parameter linked. That is a bit complicated, so don't worry. I am going to show you a live demo in a few minutes. But a great example of this is timestamp. Maybe you want to know the exact timestamp of when a tag fired, right? The event tag fired. And you don't want one event timestamp. You want the time when an event fired, because your click could fire very differently than your scroll, than your click to the cart, or your video views. Okay, If you want to learn more about event settings variable, again, we have a handy dandy link for you. I'm going to copy it. It's measure.tips/event variable. I'm going to hop over here and click on it and give that a click. And here you have it. Again, this also gives you some valid parameters for event settings, and you can also set custom ones if you want. Highly recommend you take a look at this. It's also great for e-com, so you could use it for that. Okay, so now we're going to hop back in here, and we've done our strategy. So now let's hop in to Google Tag Manager and work together live on making these changes and going through them. Okay, so here we are in Google Tag Manager. I'm going to close out of here because we don't need that. And we have analytics on this screen. Basically, we have debug view. The reason we have this is we're going to go through a live demo. To get to debug view, you go to your account, you come down the side, you go to admin, you come under data display and debug view. Now, I will say sometimes it's nice to you and sometimes it's not. So you know what? Maybe we need to try it once or twice. Okay, so here we are in the Google tag. So we're going to take a couple steps. First, I want to show you how to create a configuration settings variable. So you're going to come into the Google tag and you're going to come under variables. And you're not going to go to built-in variables. You don't want those. You're going to scroll down. And you're going to go to user-defined variables. And here we have it. We're going to click on new. And you're going to go choose a variable type to begin setup. You're going to click on this. And see it says choose a variable type. You're going to scroll down. And what you're looking for is Google Tag configuration settings. Now, like I mentioned, I am not going to set this, but I really want to show you what you can do here. So what you do here is you come in here and it says add a parameter. One common parameter is the server container URL. You can also set the send page view here, so I could set that here to false, and then you can also set server container. Here we go. Now, in this case, I don't have a server container. This is not a server-side setup, but if you did, you'd put it in here. But we can totally do it for send page view false, and we can rename this. We're going to call this. Now, the naming convention is really important here, so you're going to want to go Google Tag GT -config, and spelling does matter, settings. And we can just name it that as, I like to actually add the word variable, but in the other ones, you're going to add dynamic or static for the event ones. Okay, you're going to hit save. Now, how do you connect this variable to your Google tags? Let's go back there and do that together. So you're going to go to tags. Okay, so once you are there, you are going to look for your Google tag. If you have a lot of tags, you can actually come in here. Just show you this. I know I don't have a lot of tags, but it just helps, okay? Okay. Now, what you can do is, as you can see, I already have this parameter here. I'm going to remove it from here. Just know that you don't want to have the parameters in your Google tag configuration variable and in the actual tag itself, because what will happen is the tag will override whatever the variable set. So please ensure you remove it from here. So what you're going to do is you're going to come here, you're going to look for your variable, and you're going to click on it. Now, if you notice, the minute I added it, I'm actually going to take that away. I'm going to add it again. Watch this. See that? What appeared? The show inherited parameters. The neat thing is you can see the inherited parameters in this tag now. And if you were like, oh, we need to add another one, you would actually go to this variable and add it there versus updating this tag on its own. And it will update for any Google tag that has this variable connected to it. So we're going to hit save. So we've checked our first box. Okay. What's the next thing we need to do? So we're going to X out of there. I'm going to go to variables. Now we are going to create our event settings variable static. And we're thinking page location, because sometimes I'm not doing it in this Google Tag Manager, but you might redact PII, right? Or you might, adjust your page location. So how do you do that? You come down here again, user-defined variables, and click on new. Come down here to choose a variable type to begin setup. Come down here, and remember we looked at this one, the configuration. Now you're just going to pop one more down to event settings. So here we have it. Okay, now a very similar setup to the configuration settings variable. You have to add a parameter, so you're going to click add a parameter. So here we can type in page_location, but as you mentioned, there's also, like, it's going to give you different ones, like you can set content group, right? That's another one you can set. So there's many different values here if you just type it in. Kind of type in different things and see what's available. This is great for ecom because you can actually set all your ecom values here and then connect that variable. But we're going to start with something simple like page_location. You need to be able to spell. And I'm just going to set it to page URL because I didn't redact any PII. But if you had a redacted variable, this is where you set it. Okay, again, naming conventions are super, super important. So GT/event. And you really want to make sure you spell it properly. For some reason, spelling is hard some days. And make sure you call it static. Okay, so here we have it. And you're going to save. Now, this variable you create is only going to be connected to your Google tag variable. So again, we're going to come into tags. we're going to come here and we're going to search for Google tag. And you can come in here. You're going to come down here. And you see how you have this variable here where you're going to scroll down. You see this? Shared event settings. You can come here and just attach this. That's it. And again, it pops up. And here you have it. It's that. Okay. Hit save. So we have one last one to do, which is dynamic. Okay. And this is for timestamp. So you come back in here. You're going to go back into variables. You're going to scroll down to user-defined variables. Okay. Now do note, for this example, I have this custom JavaScript variable here. It was created off of a blog from Simo. We'll link it below, but so if you really want to do this, you can totally do this. It's just code that basically grabs a timestamp of when an event happens, and really you can just copy and paste it. But it's not something we're going to dive into at this time. Okay. So come in here, we're going to click on new again, and we're going to click here to choose a variable type. We're going to scroll down. We're looking for Google tag event settings variable. We're coming down here, and we're going to add a parameter. Now, you can enter something called timestamp, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to put your custom variable right there. Okay, naming conventions, naming conventions, naming conventions, right? I said this a few times. GT, event settings, and make sure you add the word dynamic. Trust me, I've been there where the naming conventions were off, and then I was like pulling my hair out. Okay, so we're gonna hit save. Now, where do you add the dynamic? You do not add the dynamic to your Google tag. The dynamic is for any GA4 tags, event tags that you want these variables, these parameters present in. So what does that mean? We're gonna head over to tags. Okay, so I want a timestamp in all my GA4 events. What you can do is come in here and type in GA4 events. Now, we are not going to spend the next, however many minutes updating all these. We're just going to pick a few critical ones and update one. So the first one is page view. So what you're going to do is come in here. You're going to come into your GA4 event tag. Now, you have the same thing, event name, all this stuff, but you're going to come down here to event parameters. There's something new in here. There is the event settings variable. So you're going to click here, and you're going to go to make sure you do not pick static because you do not want to override the values of the static. You want to only pick the dynamic. And then you can show inherited to see what it inherits. Now here's the neat thing. We're going to do a couple more. I'm going to show you the neat thing with this function. Right, hit save. Okay, let's say we do clicks. So again, come in here. Now, this tag specifically has its own parameters. You see that it has link click, link text, but then we also want to add on this dynamic timestamp. So how do we do that? We come here again, dynamic. Just make sure you pick dynamic, and that is why naming conventions are super, super, super important. Save. We're also going to do scroll. So we're going to come in here. We're going to come down here, and again, it has its own parameters, but we're also going to tack on these dynamic, and we can show inherited. So it's like this one you inherited, and this one is for this tag specifically. Save. Now, let's say Julie and me are having a discussion 2 months from now, and Julie's like, you know what? We need to add this other parameter to all our events. Now, in the before days, you would have to go into each of these events and come down here and come here and manually type it in. Do you remember those days? If you don't, trust me, you are lucky. Here's the win with the dynamic variable. You're going to come in here. You're going to scroll down. You're going to look for your dynamic variables. All you're going to do is come in here, click on here, add a parameter. Let's call it anything. And it's going to have any value. Not a real parameter, I'm just kind of showing you something. When I hit save here, and I'm going to hit save here, okay, just to kind of show you this. I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to go to tags, okay. Now I'm going to go to my clicks or my page view, any of these. Look what happens. This is updated now. So you come in here and you go show inherited and watch this. It is added. So this makes it super, super easy to add parameters to all your GA4 event tags after the fact. Okay, so I'm going to go delete this anything, any value, because we really don't want that firing, right? So let's go do that together. Come in here before we do our live preview. Come in here and we are going to delete this and save. Okay, so we've created a configuration settings variable. We've created an event settings dynamic and event settings static. We are off to the races, guys. We have our debug ready to go. We are now going to hit preview. Let this load. We have our URL tagged up and we go off to the races. Okay, so it is good to kind of have the order of this is your tag assistant, and then you have your site, and then you have debug. You want to kind of see yourself in debug, so let's give Google a second to identify ourselves. Okay, let's make sure first our configuration variables work. So we can come in here, and you're going to see you actually have a configuration settings variable, and there's an event settings variable. So let's go over to see when this tag fired. It fired at 3, so click on that. So this is really super awesome because it'll say your configuration settings variable, send page view is false. So notice how it says the configuration settings variable, right? And it says event settings variable, page location, and it puts it in there. So it actually tells you what's in these variables right here. Let's hop into analytics. Okay, here we have it. Give it a second. You know what? I'm going to try to get page view to fire and see if it'll show up here. So let's go take a look at our page view. So that fires on container loaded, number 4. So here we have it. Now look at this. We have an event settings variable and we have timestamp. So let's go see if our page view shows here. I think GA4 just needs a refresh. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Debug is one of those finicky things. Okay, so we're going to give this a second to identify us. Okay, so let's take some actions on the site and continue going. Okay, so we're going to scroll a little. I'm going to click on the Academy. Okay, so let's go take a look at what happens in Tag Assistant. Okay, so coming into here. We're giving this a second to load. Give this a second. I'm going to hit enable here. Okay, so over here, initialization. Again, as you can see, the values are there. And then on page view, we have our timestamp. And I'm hoping we've showed up here now. We got a couple scrolls. Okay, we have a couple scrolls. So let's take a look at our scrolls. As you can see, this is our scroll event. And we have our timestamp. See? So that's showing up. And same with our click. We have our timestamp. And as you can see, these values are different. Look at this. This is 1523. And if I go to our scroll, the timestamp is... Sometimes this doesn't send the correct timestamp. Oh, yeah, 1523.15. And let's make sure this one, 1523.11. You see, it's a few seconds. I was a little too fast there with my mouse, I think. So there you have it. We've basically set up 3 variables in our Google or GTM, one for configuration settings, one for event setting static, and one for dynamic. Do remember that the configuration settings and the event setting static are attached to your Google tag versus the dynamic is attached to any of your GA4 tags where you want those parameters set. That is the most critical piece. Alrighty, what was your one thing? Was it that you now have these new variables and you want to take a step back, think about your strategy and how your Google tag is set up, and then adjust it, maybe create an event settings static variable, or maybe create a configuration settings variable. Take some time, come up with your strategy, and then implement it. And if you have questions, you know if you're back there and Ask Instructor, you can ask us. We are back there and waiting for your questions. Now, if you found this useful, I highly recommend you hit the subscribe button. We have tons of great content coming, so you're going to want to stay tuned. Okay. Now, we talked about the Academy. If you want to learn more about the Academy, hop on, get some free tools and some free courses. You're going to want to go to our site, and to join the Academy, you're going to want to go to measure.tips/getacademy. That site will get you access to kind of learning more about the Academy. And then if you want to sign up for a free membership, there's information on that site. Alrighty. So there you have it. Understanding variables with the Google tag.